All I was saying is that I'm out here in DC and you are in Holland. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
And do you live out there full time, like even when it's not a weird coronavirus lockdown?
Well, to be honest, I've been kind of all over the place the last couple of years. I've lived in California. Well, actually, to be honest, I haven't really lived anywhere. I've just been moving around all the time, and I've stayed at certain places for a while. I've stayed in California, in LA. I've stayed in Holland for a while, in New York. And it's been kind of like that for the last couple of years. And this is the first time in many years that I've been in the same place for longer than like 2 weeks.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, how does that feel? Because, the pace of life when you're kind of having this exploding career can be overwhelming, but it can be fun at the same time. Were you finding yourself wishing for more stability, or are you finding yourself going a little stir crazy?
Even though touring is and traveling is very heavy on the mind, and it's pretty intense. It's pretty tough, and you don't get a lot of rest. But to be honest, I think it kind of keeps me sane to have this ongoing goal. Like you're just going and going, and I kind of really enjoy it. And I think music and making music and touring and just being on that train gives me some sort of direction. And right now, I kind of lost my direction of what I'm doing,
Yeah. Well, and I don't think you're alone in that, man. I think there's a lot of artists out there who are scrambling to sort of figure out what being an artist looks like right now.
Exactly. Because we had a lot of plans for this year. Everything was all set out and it was going to be awesome, but not anymore.
Yeah. Weren't you were just about to do your first live band show, right?
Yeah, I'd been rehearsing for that for weeks, and we prepared a big show in San Francisco at Bill Graham, and we were so ready. It was really going to happen. And then a week before the event, San Francisco issued this no events thing.
Yeah,
and that was just the start of this entire. Then I think 3 days later, Trump said like no planes between Europe and America. And then I was like, that was the moment I was like, okay, I'm going back home to Holland because.
Yeah, was there a thought that you would stay? Was it a pretty easy decision?
Yeah, I really like being in America. I think I just like being there. It's very motivating and exciting. But my social system is still in Holland, even though I haven't really been here a lot. It's still in Holland. I know my doctor here, and I don't know anyone. I mean, I have like health insurance, I guess, but I don't have health care to that extent in America. So I'd rather be sick at home if I get sick, than be sick in America.
Yeah, well, and my understanding of the Dutch healthcare system is that it's pretty solid and maybe a little more appealing than the healthcare system we have in the States.
Yeah, it's pretty organized, and people have good healthcare, even if they can't afford the best healthcare. There's still good healthcare. No one knew it was going to happen. Like. When this all started, we were all like, okay, what's going to happen? So everything was uncertain and still is. And I'd just rather be around my family, close to my family. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you staying with your family, with your folks?
Yeah. So right now, like I told you, I haven't lived anywhere.
Right.
Which also means I don't really have a place to go because I've just been staying in hotels and in Airbnbs and I got to find a place. I gotta buy a house, but I just haven't got I didn't have the time to really get into it and find a nice place. And it also wasn't my priority. I was just having so much fun traveling. Hadn't got the time to look into it and take the time. But now is a good time, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, what better time, right? I think these are.
I just had so much fun traveling around, and I was just happy staying in hotels, Airbnbs, wherever, and it's a very free experience.
Yeah,
it's really nice. It's a nice feeling to have to not have that sort of property in a way, like you don't belong anywhere.
Not tied down to anything. Yeah,
I think that also really fits my personality because I'm really scared of commitment in general, and but I got it. That's one of the things I wanna get better at. Committing to something.
Yeah. Something to work on for quarantine, I guess. I mean, I think this is forcing so many of us to reorganize our priorities, right? And just the fact that we're all sitting here, it's almost, at least for me, I'm finding that just I'll get bored and start dealing with something I previously didn't want to deal with just because I'm sitting here and there's kind of nothing else to do,
Yeah. It's, I think in 10, 20, 30, like no matter how long, we will look back at this time, and this is something we're never going to forget. People our age, we're never going to forget this. This is crazy. This never happened before.
We're going through it as a race of people, as humans. Every single person is going through it. That's the craziest part to me. Is it's not just some part of the world. Everyone in the entire world. It's hard to even wrap your brain around it.
Yeah, makes me feel very tiny, very small.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's exactly right. And although it does seem, to bring it back to you, you launched this series of songs that you're putting out every week now.
Yeah.
The Stay Vibrant series. And it may not have felt this way to you, but it seemed like pretty quickly you were able to just sort of slide into this new mode of operation, this new way of connecting with people and still being able to create. How quickly did you come up with that idea? How has it been for you so far, in the first month and a half of doing that?
Well, the Stay Vibrant thing has been around for about, the phrase has been around for a year. I think I've been,
right.
It was born last year at a show, and everything just looked so vibrant, all the lights. And I said that a couple of times on the mic. And after that, it became a thing. And we started saying it to each other, like, stay vibrant, man. And people started tweeting it, and it just, got out of control, actually. But I really like it. It's really, it's realistic. It's realistic optimism. That's what people started calling it. Because staying vibrant is not about being positive always. It's not about like, positive vibes only. It's more about embracing the ups and downs in life. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to feel great, as long as you're honest with yourself and the people around you about it.
Yeah.
I feel like most of the time people want to pretend that everything is great all the time, and it's not. Life is very, very tough, and it's okay to show that. And staying vibrant is just a reminder that even though life has ups and downs, it's important to keep a vibrant mindset. And then this isolation thing happened, the quarantine thing happened, and I was just like, I don't want to sit here and do nothing. I just want to make music and put it out, because that's... So back in the days, like 5 years ago, remember Soundcloud? You would just make a song.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. Make a song, put it out, and then that was it. And that was just such a free... It felt so liberating and free. And I wanted to get back to that. And back to that time. That's what I'm doing now. I'm just making a song, uploading it a couple of days after, every Monday. And people seem to be really appreciative of that, because people hold on to music in times like this,
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because the music you're putting out, some of it, I mean, some of it is just you with a guitar singing and very little production behind it in terms of maybe what people would expect from, your touring project. And I think it's sort of perfect for the times we're living in, because we're in a time when I think all artists should be experimenting. And I think people are listening and consuming music differently because they're not going out to shows. And,
exactly.
and music affects people differently. So in that sense, I could see how it's liberating for you as well. I'm wondering, when you as a songwriter, just in general, when you write songs, are you the kind of person who will just obsess over details in a song, like sort of never let it be finished, always like going back and changing stuff? Like, is this mode of just having to put something out every single week kind of a new way of thinking for you?
Oh, that's a great question. That's also good on you for analyzing that, because it's definitely pushing myself to be less of a perfectionist and just focus on the feeling of the entire song and not focus on every little detail that no one's going to hear but me. Just focus on the general feeling of a piece, and then just be brave enough to just put it out there, even though it's not perfect.
Right.
And that's what it's really rewarding and liberating for me to do this. I've always felt like San Holo, the artist project, I came up in the EDM world, I guess, but most people don't know that before that I played in many bands and I was just a guitar kid playing guitar. And so I've never felt a DJ. I've never felt like a DJ or producer. I just feel like I just want to express what I feel in any way that I want to. Like, so this is a very Stave Ivan project is a really good little bridge for me. Also to show people that San Holo is not a genre; it's more like a feeling, and that's what I'm trying to spread. Just like I want people to listen to my music because it's my mind, and not because it's EDM or rock or acoustic. It's just it comes from my mind, and I want people to be. I would like it, and it's working. People seem to be really. I'm surprised how open-minded people that listen to my music are, because they seem to be very supportive of whether I drop an EDM song or an acoustic singer-songwriter song. It seems to connect,
Yeah,
so I'm happy.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I think you've been very good about sort of sticking to your guns and not compromising or bowing to pressures of, say, if you're booked on a giant EDM festival on a big stage, there's probably some pressure, right, to try to fit in with what everyone else is doing. And if you're playing in between two bass-heavy DJs that are just, banging it out for an hour on either side of you.
Don't say no more, man. It's really true. And it used to be, last couple of years, I've been really okay with it. But when I started out, I did feel a lot of pressure, because my music is not per se super heavy and like super bass heavy and like hype and turn up. And I would play in between like very heavy dubstep producers sometimes, and I did feel like I had to kind of fight my way up and be loud, and but lately I feel like I've built up this not me, more like the people that listen to my music. I've built this universe for me and people around it that are just appreciative for all kinds of art. And so I've played rock songs at an EDM festival, and
right. Yeah, I mean, that's beautiful, man. And I think there's a lesson in that for anyone who's nervous about trying something different or something they're not sure how it'll go over. Because if we think about that festival scenario where you're sort of the odd one out on this lineup, then in the moment, I'm sure that does feel, or at least did feel, awkward. But then if you put yourself in the position of people watching that show, what is going to stick out to them? What are they going to remember afterwards? It's going to be the person who did that different thing, And I think that's sort of the way you naturally attract like-minded people.
Yeah. I feel like what worked for me is to focus on the people that seem to enjoy it. So even if there's like 20 people in the crowd out of 1,000 people that are really enjoying it and they're vibing, focus on them. Because of course, I mean, if I play at really heavy dubstep festivals and I come off stage and I read my tweets, of course there's some people saying, oh my God, I'm falling asleep during this set, because it's not dubstep or heavy enough or whatever. But there's always going to be those people that just don't vibe with what you're doing, or maybe it's not their thing, or they just don't understand it. Maybe they don't get it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think about it in terms of other art forms too. If you're the kind of person who makes romantic comedies and then, somebody else says, oh, there wasn't enough, like car chases in this movie.
Yeah.
It's like you wouldn't go just change your entire style for that. And I think for some reason in music, that's harder to do. Maybe because we're kind of all comparing ourselves against each other all the time, or at least that's what social media is sort of forcing us to do. But I think you're on the right path with that, man.
I think you just gotta find ways to make it work. Look, if I'm at an EDM festival, I'm not gonna play a 1-hour acoustic set because that's not gonna work. I know that.
Yeah.
But you can throw some of that in and package it slightly different, so that people, you're kind of challenging people to open their minds to it slowly, and that's what I've been trying. And when I first started playing guitar live, people were like, "What's that thing? It's not even plugged in. It's fake, but it's just wireless, But and slowly it started to become normal, and now I see more and more people like playing live instruments like guitars during their DJ sets, which is awesome. But it's definitely not easy in the beginning. People are going to be weird about it. But that's the fun thing. I kind of get excited from little hate comments, and because you know what the thing is. Someone told me that the opposite of love is not hate; it's indifference, which is very true. Because I rather have someone hate a song than be like, oh, I don't really know, I don't care. I'd rather have
Absolutely.
you to...
Yeah, because it's the same with appreciating music or being a fan of somebody. I mean, love and hate are two sides of the same coin, right? Like
exactly,
So you can't hate something unless you're invested in it,
Exactly, yeah. That's so true.
So coming up, growing up in Holland, you mentioned obviously you were in bands and you came up in that mentality with that kind of mindset. And it's interesting to me because, I think Holland is known for the Dutch DJ community. There's been just decades and decades of sort of, really famous Dutch DJs, and the Dutch dance scene has had such a strong impact on the world. But I know a lot less about the Dutch rock scene, and I'm a little curious, for you growing up, A, were you musical just in general, and B, what kind of music was around you? What was catching your ear?
Okay, so first off, let me say, I don't know why Holland has such a high export of DJs. I don't know. Still, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something in the water or something. I don't know. Because it's not like the school teaches us to be like this is no. Right. What I do know is that for me, compared to America, the band scene in Holland is very minimal. Sure, there's bands, but it's very hard to break through as a band here. Holland is a very small country, and I think there's like 20 million people, 19 million people, and there's like 17 million people in LA.
Right.
And there's not enough people for a niche to become really big.
Yeah.
There's not enough money for that either. And in America, it's the opposite world. That's why I tour in America so much, because there's just way more demand, I guess, for what I'm doing. Was I musical? I used to be really focused on getting good grades at school, because they let me into the school that I really wanted to go to, like a high school, but my level wasn't high enough. So I was like, I really had to prove myself.
Okay.
And that first year, I just studied so hard for all the tests, and I had like the best results, and I could go like to the highest level of the school system is different here, but I proved I wanted to prove to myself like I can do this, and I did, and I became like, I had like straight A's all year long, but I wasn't happy. And so I spoke to my mom, and I was like, Mom, I want to do something in music. And then I got a guitar, and that just changed everything for me. It just really, changed my life. The first time I started playing guitar, I just felt a connection to it. And ever since that moment, I felt like, okay, music is something I want to do, because I feel like I'm naturally good at this.
It was kind of natural from the second you picked it up.
Yeah. And I can tell, like, if you study hard, everyone can learn how to play guitar, I think. But I do know, I've been a guitar teacher for 8 years after I graduated from Music Academy. I do know that some kids just have a natural feel for music, and for some people it's different. They have to really study it more and learn it.
Right.
Some people just.
Right.
I'm not saying that I'm the kid that just had it all, because I studied really hard for it too, but.
Well, of course, it's always a combination of hard work and sort of that innate ability, right? But it's interesting, I mean, to even have the idea for yourself at such a young age that I'm not happy with something I'm doing well at. And can you even sort of identify like why you were attracted to the guitar in the first place?
Yeah, because I was seeing these bands on TV, like Linkin Park and stuff, and I was like, man, the guitar sounds so cool. I just thought it was great. Something about guitars just, it wasn't drums, not singing, not bass, not keyboards. No, it was guitars. Something about the rock sound that really drew me in.
That's interesting. And how quickly did you have like teenage bands with friends that you formed, people at school? My
high school did a lot of music stuff. So we had like high school parties, we had like Christmas parties, and every party there would be like bands playing covers and stuff. And I remember playing at this high school party, and I played this cover, Maroon 5, This Love. I played that song. Nice. I had to play that song. And it was like 3 weeks after I started guitar, and they already asked me like, hey, do you want to play? And I was like, yeah, let's go. And it just, I still remember that night. It was such a fun experience, and that really changed my life.
That's beautiful, man. Was it, what was it about it, if you think back? Was it the experience of being on stage and feeling that live connection with people? The performing aspect?
It's about doing something that provokes a feeling in someone else. Like I could play a chord, and then you hear the chord, and it would make you feel something. Could make you feel something.
Yeah.
And I think that's very cool.
I think that's incredible. And you tell me if this is a step too far, but what it makes me think of is maybe that's part of the bridge between your rock side and your DJ side, because that's a very DJ kind of thought to have, and I relate to it, which is that I was so passionate when I was a kid about all these different kinds of music. And the second I realized that there was a way I could convey that and share that with somebody else that would make them excited about it the same way it made me feel, that was the hook for me.
Yeah. And maybe not even the exact same way, but just somewhere around that. Like, let's say you play a song and even though you think it's a happy song, someone might think it's a sad song. Or it's possible, you know, you never know. But still, that the fact that you can play something and this other person has a reaction to it emotionally, that's a beautiful thing. It's a very human thing. It's a connection, and in the end, for me, it's all about connection and energy, and it plays a really big part in my life. Like the realization, energy exists between people, and you know, it's beautiful. Yeah, I can't even put it into words.
No, I know. And I feel kind of exactly the same way. Like I always come back to that idea in my own head. And when I'm writing music, when I'm playing music, whatever it is, that's always in the back of my head. And it's interesting. I talk about this on the show a lot, but I'm not a particularly spiritual person. I'm not religious at all, but there's something about that connection. That is kind of my spirituality. It's the only thing you could say to me that would, you know, convince me there is something else out there, you know?
Are you an atheist, or are you agnostic?
It's a good question. I would say atheist generally, but I could probably be convinced, you know.
So you think there is no God?
Yeah, generally, yeah. On certain days, somebody might say something to me to make me doubt that stance. But in general, yeah, I'm a fairly cynical person. I don't think there is a God, but I do think, like we've been talking about, there's that connection that you can feel between people. There's a state of being you can achieve that is hard to talk about.
Yeah, I feel you on that.
So there's something.
Yeah, for the longest time, I thought I was an atheist. For a very long time, I did think, no, there's no God, there's nothing. But I think the last couple of years, I've changed my mind on it. I think maybe now I am agnostic. Maybe I just don't know.
Right.
I don't think we know anything yet.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the older I get, the more I realize that actually I just don't know anything at all.
Yeah. Funnily, one of the songs I put out on the Stay Vibrant collection is called I Don't Know Anything.
Yeah, I actually really like that song. I was just thinking about that.
It's basically about this conversation, where it's about this subject, about getting older and realizing that, man, we really don't know anything. I mean, look at this virus. If a year ago someone would say, hey, in a year a virus is going to stop the entire world,
right,
we'd all be laughing.
Absolutely. It sounds insane.
So what if I now tell you, like, in 2 years we find this new greater power that we never knew, and you know, it's possible, right. You know?
Oh, it's absolutely possible. And I think for me it's a matter of just changing my perspective, because I don't believe in a God in the sense of like a Christian God or a Hindu God. But if I change what the definition of God means to myself, then sure, absolutely. If we can broaden that definition.
Which is what a lot of people seem to be doing. That I feel like I speak to a lot of religious people, and in the end it comes down to that. Like, well, to me it means this. So this is we can have
this is a whole
entire episode about religion.
Podcast, yeah. But I will say the last point I'll make about it is that if you look at religious groups and, you know, even the biggest world religions, what is it really about? It's about connection, right? It's about connecting with people. It's in its purest form, the ideals of it. It's about taking care of people. It's about building that connection. And so, you know, maybe that's just what we're doing with a different name and a different perspective.
Yeah, I think in the end, I'm just looking for a connection with people. Yeah, in all sorts, all kinds of ways.
Well, and so to bring it back to you then, you know, how did that search for that connection evolve for you? So, you know, you're playing in these bands, you went to university studying music as well. When did dance music enter your awareness? Like, what was some of your early experiences with dance music?
I've always loved all kinds of music. I've listened to trance music. I've listened to rock music. I've listened to classical music growing up. And there was always something, I was aware of this very early on, that in every genre of music, I could find something that really touched me. So it didn't matter if it was an acoustic guitar, electric guitar, or piano, or it was a pop song or a rock song. There was something in different songs that I felt inspired by. And after getting into hip hop, I started making beats. I was kind of tired of the guitar because I felt like everyone was trying to do the same thing on the guitar at my school. Everyone wanted to be Jimi Hendrix, and that's fine, but I just wanted to do my own thing. So I wanted to do something completely different and started making beats. And from the moment that I started making beats on my laptop, in my Ableton, Logic, or whatever software I was using, I felt a lot of freedom. I could sample different songs. I could make a beat out of it. Whatever, I could do whatever my heart desired. and that freedom, that inspired me to check out more dance music and hip hop music and all sorts of music. And I guess I just made a couple of remixes, and I called them "Don't Touch the Classics." Like I remixed Dr. Dre and Outkast from these really shitty acapellas I found on Google.
Yeah, the DIY acapellas.
Yeah, like the DIY acapellas. I put them in the Ableton session, and I just created I'm not even sure if it was dance music. I was just making a beat and a universe around it that sounded like me, and that became the first step, I guess. People started calling me, "Hey, Sam, do you want to play at our party?" And I didn't know how to DJ. I wasn't even, I did not know anything about the DJ world or the DJ scene. So I learned all of that, and that's kind of the path that I walked.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you were sort of learning about the world as you were participating in it. Because usually I think the more common story would be that, you were inspired or you were a fan of these DJs as a kid, and then, you sort of eventually joined their ranks. But to sort of be booked to DJ before you even knew how to DJ, and to be figuring all that out as you're doing it, that's really interesting.
To be honest, I did have that dream, but I wanted to be in a band. That was my dream,
right.
Just to play in a band. But I was like, hey, maybe if this seems to connect to people, then I don't want to take that for granted. That's beautiful. Let's go for it. And I used that door to just, I guess, pave my own way and create my own genre, or maybe create my own audience.
I mean, I think you did all of that. It's interesting to me that, once those remixes started popping off, and then, of course, you started releasing original music as San Holo, people sort of immediately tried to label what you were doing, right? And I think pretty quickly you sort of got put into this future bass category.
Yeah.
Which is just funny to me, because this whole time you've sort of just been saying how you wanted to do sort of your own thing and be very individualistic about it. And then sort of right out of the gates, people want to categorize it, right?
Yeah, I think it's very normal. It happens. I mean, Debussy, the piano player, got labeled as an impressionistic piano player, and he didn't want that either. But I think it's just also very artist-like to be like, I don't want to be labeled, Of course, we never start. I think that's why it worked, because I did not make dance music for the sake of future bass. It wasn't even a term that I was aware of at the time. And I think a lot of people started wanting to make future bass. And that's where you should watch out, because if everyone's doing it, it's hard to stand out from the crowd,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it also seemed like pretty early on, and maybe this goes into that sort of individualistic streak we've been talking about, that you started off working with, some of the big labels in the scene, releasing some of those early singles, but it seems like pretty quickly you formed Bitbird, which is your own label. And I was kind of curious, if you think back to the time when you were just starting it, what was your mindset at that time? You know, why start a label, you know, quote unquote, early into the career?
Well, it's very simple. I would send my music to labels, and they would be like, "This sounds cool, but it's not what we're looking for at the moment." And some labels were even like, "Yeah, it's cool. Maybe you can change the drum sounds of that and that." I don't know. They were just giving me musical feedback that I really didn't want to hear, because it was my art, and this label head's gonna tell me to change the sound of it, and I was like, hell no. So I started my label, and I started releasing on there. And back then in the Soundcloud days, it was such a vibrant time, because people would just find your music and comment on it, and they could repost it, and it was like the embodiment of self-empowerment. You know, like you had music, you put it out, people would find it, and if they loved it, they would retweet it or reshare it with their friends. And it was really beautiful, and I'm really, really grateful that I was able to witness that, because I found so much great music on SoundCloud.
It really does feel like the last days of the sort of DIY aesthetic of dance music, you know?
Yeah, it was beautiful, man. I found some of the most amazing songs on SoundCloud that I heard sounds that I didn't even know existed, because I feel like now, again, with Spotify and stuff, I mean, I love the streaming service. I mean, streaming is great, but it's also more catered to playlists, you know, and popular playlists. And
there's more gatekeepers, you know?
Exactly, yeah. And there was in SoundCloud time, it was just a jungle.
Yeah.
There was remixes, copyright infringement, everything was like out of control.
Yeah, and it was great, man. There was something really beautiful to the chaos of that.
I don't know, man. I just electronic music, rock music, it's all the same to me. It's just sounds combined.
Right. It's just it's what you said earlier, right? It's the feeling.
Yeah, and I feel like I talked about this with one of my friends that doesn't do music, and I told him how much there's so much emotion in a sound for me. Like I have a guitar here. I can show you. What I mean.
Yeah, please.
Like I could play a note, and it would sound like this. But I could play a note that sound like this. And for me, that's an entire different song almost. It's like but to my friend, it was like it's the same, you know.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because I have very much the same reaction to you, where, you know, those two different sounds, I mean, it's telling two different stories almost.
Exactly. And it's fascinating to me that I realized, wow, this is not how other people hear it. It's just, I made up that story in my mind that there's two different emotions, but for a lot of people, those two sounds are the same. And I hear completely different stories with those, between those.
Yeah.
I can't even put it into words. Sorry.
No. I know exactly what you mean. I mean, that then raises the question, right, of how do you make people understand? How do you communicate those stories that are in your head in a way through your music that people can connect with them? And obviously that there's no sort of one right answer to that. But I am curious if you've figured out over time yourself as a songwriter, you know, ways to present these ideas that people can connect with them? Or is it more about just sort of having the idea, putting it out there, and just letting it be what it is?
I think the most important realization for me in communicating that is to not put too much into one thing. Yeah. Like my first songs were so layered. There was like so many things going on at the same time. And for me, it made perfect sense because I knew exactly that sound belongs there and that sound's over there. But I realized, I showed it to a friend, and a specific part I heard like 10 sounds, and he just heard it as one sound.
Right.
You know, and that made me realize, wow, like I'm so zoomed in on this song. I know every little part, but for him, it's just one thing that comes to his ears or something, and I should. So minimalism is important in a way to. My English is so bad sometimes.
No. You're absolutely right. I mean, that just makes me think of something that comes up on this show a lot, which is that all of the best pop songs ever written are extremely simple.
Yeah.
You know, every single one of them. And there's something about being able to, it's one of the hardest things to do, to say a lot with a little, you know?
It's even frustrating sometimes because I feel like there's so much I want to put in a song sometimes, so many flavors. It could be an explosion of flavors and sounds in your ears, but it's too much for some people. And to a lot of people, actually, it's too much because they're not trained to hear all these different sounds at the same time. But it's great. It's very important because it's so complex, man. I can't even put it into words. It's just a feeling. And
well, I think one of the ways you did do that kind of early on is the song that probably a lot of people heard first from you, which is Light. And that song to me is a pretty good encapsulation of what we've been talking about, where I think if I think about it as a producer, it's probably complicated behind the scenes, but the end product of that is a very simple idea that I think just managed to appeal to a lot of people, right? Like, to me, that seems like an early time when you had success at doing what we've just been talking about.
Yeah. I think so too. Yeah, I think, I never thought Light would end up as the song. Like, it is my biggest song to date. I don't know, man. Maybe some songs are just, when you put sounds together and it becomes something special. And I think that's what happened with that track.
What was that experience like for you of, you know, we talked about how the labels sometimes didn't see your vision. And so you made Bitbird because, you know, out of necessity, basically. And then Light comes out on your own label. And all of a sudden you've sort of, you know, proven the doubters incorrect, and you're having this big moment, you know, not only sort of just a validation, which I'm sure felt good, but in terms of, you know, real life stuff, like all of a sudden, I'm sure your touring went crazy. I'm sure all these new eyes were on you and there were these new expectations. If you think back, what is that moment of kind of reaching the next level? What did that feel like at the time?
So the funny thing is that we showed that song to a major label and they were really not interested. They were we were really excited about it. I showed it to them. My management showed it to them. They were not excited about it. Then we put it out, and the first month it got like 30 million plays. And then that same party knocked on the door. It was like, hey, do you want to talk? It just proves that you don't know. You never know when something is a good song or a successful song.
Did you know while you were writing it? Did it feel different from any other songs you were working on at the time?
I was releasing so much music. I was releasing a song every month, and I think it's a good song. I think I was excited about it, but I wasn't like, oh, this is a hit or whatever. No way. I think, coming back to your question of how did I experience that time, I think I didn't really realize it at the time. It was just, wow, it was on Spotify, like in the biggest playlists, and it was on radio, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I think only a year after I realized it when I was walking in LA, and I was with my friends. We were shopping, and a car drove by, and the song was blasting out of the car. And I was like, wow, people listen to the song still. yeah, I think that was very special. And it was very hard after that song for me to put out music.
Yeah, that's interesting too, right? Is then there's all these expectations. And even if you don't have a label breathing down your neck, I'm sure even just on yourself, there's this thought of how do we follow this up? Do I have to make a light part 2 now?
Well, to make it clear, I told you the label we talked to, they reached out again after they saw it was a success. And so we did actually end up upstreaming it to their label, but still initially it's still a Bitbird release. They just signed the song afterwards.
Sure.
So yeah, we did a couple of singles after Light with them, and I just felt that they were looking for that new light. They were looking for the new, and it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's just, and I felt extremely unhappy trying to chase that success or. I think any artist with a successful song can relate. It's just the first couple of songs that you would drop after are hard because it's really hard to. Oh, it doesn't get as much plays. Is it not a good song then? Is it not as good as that song, or is it?
Right. Well, yeah, and for people who like that song, it's so connected to their life whenever they heard it and their memories that, of course, the next thing, they haven't even had a chance to connect with it yet, right? And so there's always that initial reaction of just, oh, this doesn't feel the same as the one thing I liked.
Yeah.
And that can, as an artist, hearing that can be kind of hurtful too.
It took me a while to get out of that. It took me a while to get out of that spiral of trying to get a song as good as Light, or because it's not even like, it's not that Light is a better song than that song, or
right.
It's just also the right time and the right moment and the right people liking it.
Yeah, the stuff you can't plan for, right?
That's why I also just don't overthink too much, because you can't predict anything.
Right.
In art.
Yeah, no, we don't know anything, man. I think that's probably the truest thing we're going to say today. But it's interesting hearing you talk about, the right people getting into it at the right time, because as we mentioned earlier, there was this, future-based movement happening on Soundcloud, and people like, say, Porter Robinson were taking you out on tour. And all of a sudden, it seemed like, there was this movement that you were a part of, even if that wasn't really your intention.
And I wasn't aware of it at the time at all. I wasn't aware.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think that means then it probably was more pure, which is just cool. But what was that like, going on tour with Porter and really starting to hit the road in a significant way? Did that change the way you thought about yourself as an artist, the way you thought about your music?
Oh, well, first of all, that tour with Porter Robinson and Madeon was a life-changing experience for me. It was I have so much respect for them. And the funny thing is, when Light came out, even when I started that tour, I wasn't even. It's not like I knew every song it's not like I knew all their songs.
Right.
It was. I heard their names before, and I thought they were very inspiring because they were doing their own thing, and to see the universe that they created with the people in the room, and it was just from front to back, people were vibing to what they were doing, and I was just. They definitely inspired me and showed me that it's possible to really create something with something that you believe in, with the music, because their music is it's definitely not pop music in a sense.
Right.
I mean, Madeon has really poppy songs, which is awesome, but Porter Robinson's music is very experimental and very, very different and not super radio friendly, but still they had these entire stadiums like rocking out. Well, it's not stadiums, but what are they called?
Yeah, theaters.
Like huge theaters. I think we did a stadium once, but it was just so inspiring to see them doing what they do best, and people were there for it.
Well, yeah, and Porter, people forget, I think, just because of how massive he is now. But, you know, his whole career has been sort of doing the opposite of what he did before, you know? Because when people first started knowing him, he was making, you know, this heavy electro house stuff, like Complextro, you know, it was like him and Wolfgang Gardner and a couple other people. And then all of a sudden he makes Worlds. And at the time, I'm sure that was a confusing moment for people who had followed him previously.
Yeah. And he got a lot of hate for it too, I'm sure. I'm sure a lot of people. Yeah.
Well, and then he went on to do Virtual Self after that, right? Which is yet again, I'm sure he got a ton of hate for that too. Even though it's just a funny thing, man. I think no matter how many times you sort of prove that you know what you're doing, or at least that you have a vision for what you're doing, it's not until people sort of see the results of it that they're willing to kind of come along with you, you know?
No, definitely. I feel the artists I resonate most with, the artists that I'm inspired by mostly are the artists that are not in it to follow a genre or a popular thing, or they're truly there to express how they feel, and they're doing their thing because I'm not sure if I'm speaking for everyone, but I love doing my own thing. I love being in my own lane, and I love creating my own universe. Those are the artists that I love the most, that just want to do something different. I'm not saying that I love myself.
Well, you should love yourself. Come on now.
But there's definitely something to say about, I mean, there's so many underground artists. Also on Bitbird, like this guy, East Coast, for example, he does the craziest stuff, and it's so good. It's just, sometimes I wish people understood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, this is going back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Is how do you help people to understand, to hear it the way you hear it, you know?
Yeah.
And when you're running a label and presenting someone else's work, that's an even more complicated question, right?
Yeah. I feel like one of the hardest things for me is to look at like the success that I'm having, and then to hear these songs from these underground producers. I'm like, this is so good. You should be on the main stage with me, you know?
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it breaks my heart because I feel like they deserve the world. And
it's a harsh business, man. And everyone sort of goes into it at their own pace. Some people rise really quickly. Some people rise slowly, but get there eventually. Some people rise quickly and then fall quickly, you know, and it's one of those things. I've struggled with this too, because I've been around for a while, and I've seen people kind of come and go, and people I thought were going to be the next big thing would fizzle out, and other people that I didn't think were that great would, you know, have these crazy careers. And I think all you can really do is just sort of reach out a hand, be a friend for, you know, because we're all going through it together. Actually, one more person I wanted to touch on, just because you mentioned these amazing young new artists, is somebody who I know we're both connected with, which is Jaren.
Yeah.
I met him really early on, and I was just obsessed with his music. I'm still obsessed with his music. And it's funny because I actually just remembered this. Some of the really early conversations I had with him, I was sort of asking him, you know, where do you want to take this? What are you trying to do with it? And he mentioned you, and he mentioned Bitbird as kind of an example of, you know, something he just thought was really cool. And he was like, yeah, you know, something like that. I'd like to be involved with something like that.
Cool. Well, I'm sure he's going to do it, because he's extremely talented and visionary.
He's amazing,
dude.
Man.
He's so young. Like he's like 17, 18.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe he's 18 now. I don't even know.
Dude, here I am. I'm freaking 29. Yeah. You know, like this kid. He's freaking amazing. And I wish him. He deserves the world, man. I'm sure he's gonna get there.
I saw you brought him out at Lollapalooza there.
Yeah, of course. He did a really cool remix of one of my songs.
Yeah, that was the "Lift Me from the Ground" remix, right?
Yeah, extremely cool remix. he just gets it. I'm sure he's gonna find his way and do amazing things.
100%, man. Yeah.
And I'm all for it. I'm here to support him.
Yeah, me too, man. Yeah, absolutely. And not just him, but there's a million people we could say that about, I'm sure.
Right, right.
But actually, now that we talk about it, Lift Me From the Ground, that to me was another one of those songs. I mean, I'm aware it's another one of your big songs, but it was another one of those songs to me that was sort of a very simple idea. It's sort of an easily, like I think of that song and I think of a vibe, I think of a feeling. And it's off of album 1, which became obviously your first album. Was that another time for you? It felt like another level up kind of moment to me, both that album and that song, where you didn't make Light Part 2, but it was sort of this proving of, oh no, there's a lot left to say here. This is sort of, I found the next thing I want to say.
Album 1 was definitely a big step for me. I've been wanting to write an album for a very long time, and I locked myself up in an Airbnb in Los Angeles for like half a year, and I wrote all these songs, and Lift Me From the Ground was one of them. It connected to people, and it's beautiful to see when I play that song, people are singing it from the top of their lungs, and I'm just very, very, very appreciative.
When you hear that song, do you think about that time in the Airbnb? Is it memories of that?
Absolutely. One of my favorite things about making music is all the memories that are created during the recording process, during the writing process, and then the memories created when it's out and people are singing along to it, and you're touring with your best friends and your crew. Things I will never forget. They're part of me. Those memories are part of me, and I miss it, man. I miss creating those memories, and I can't wait for all this to be over to create more memories with people in a room.
Yeah, I miss it too, man. I mean, amen to that. And it's interesting hearing you talk about writing the song, because that's just, it's layers and layers of connections, right? We keep coming back to this idea of connection, because when you're writing the song with somebody, that's a connection you're forming, just one-on-one with one other person. And then you're letting a bigger group of people see that one connection, and that forms all these other connections.
Right.
And then you're in front of them at the live show, and it's, another branch on the tree, I guess. I never really thought about it that way, but it all does come from like that one moment of just connecting with one person, right?
Yeah. The main subject of this podcast should be a connection.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's right, man. Yeah.
Some things are not to be explained. One morning I woke up and I wrote that melody, and it could have been, if it was raining outside, I would have probably written a different melody. But the sun was shining, and I think I just met someone that I really liked. So it was kind of a love song, Lift Me From the Ground.
Yeah. Here we go. This is how you make a song connect with people, is such a relatable feeling. Just waking up and it's a nice day and you have a crush on somebody who might like you back.
Basically, yeah.
Like that's something literally everyone in the world could relate to.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be fun for me if I wasn't so invested in writing it myself. Like it's amazing to see people sing along to a song that you wrote, from your own experience. Lately I've been just like, I write all the lyrics myself and with my friend. Because if I don't, then I can't relate to the lyrics. If they're from someone else or someone sent me a top line,
That's really interesting. So even when you're collaborating with other singers and all of that, it's still your writing?
Yes. So that song, Lift Me From the Ground, I wrote it with my friend. His name is Rutger, also known as the Nicholas.
Okay.
And we wrote it, and we asked her to sing it. I really suck at collaborating with. Yeah, I just do. I'm so invested. I'm a little bit selfish, maybe. I'm a little bit invested in expressing what I think, because that's maybe the sole purpose of why I make music, just expressing the way I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, which is just interesting to hear you say you suck at collaborating when the rest of the time we've been talking about how you love connecting with people.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's different, right? Because I can play a chord, and that it is also kind of one-sided. I play the chord and you feel.
Yeah.
But it's not like you're going to send me... I mean, I guess you can send energy back and I perform it differently, but it's not like I'm going to change my chord if you don't like it.
Yeah, true. Well, what do you look for in people you do collaborate with, or even in just, singers who you bring in to work on your music? Is there something you can identify that attracts you to people?
A big part of it is just unexplainable, just like a feeling. That's the biggest part, and I love it when singers sound like, when they have a unique sound. When they start singing and you're like, oh, that's so you. I love that. I love when people sound like no one else. You might think, yeah, of course, everyone sounds, but like a lot of people sound the same. I think.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people sing the same way, and it has to be unique and true to themselves.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, that's what gets me excited about anyone. It's what gets me excited about a new producer, a singer, anyone is when you can tell they're not trying to follow what's been done already,
Exactly. Yeah, man.
I'll start wrapping it up by saying this. We've talked about, I get the sense you are missing the road. You're missing being out there connecting with people. So I guess just checking in, like, how are you taking care of yourself now? And how do you, when you're back on the road, take care of yourself out there? Like, because this lifestyle, whether we're cooped up at home or whether we're going crazy on the road, I think you mentioned at the very, very start, it can take a toll. And what tricks, what tips, what have you discovered about yourself? How do you keep yourself healthy, happy, and sane out there?
I think I am very honest to the people around me about me needing space, like after shows and before shows. I think it's important just to be very open about what your needs are. I like being alone before my show sometimes and after my show. And it's important to take that alone time for me. So sometimes I just take a bath and lock myself up for 2 hours in my room doing my own thing. And I think everyone is different and everyone has their own little things they need in life. And it's important to be open about them. And because in the end, for example, like if you have a manager, I think it's job. It would be his job to create an environment for you where you're most comfortable so that you can perform at your highest level.
Yeah.
It's not his job to make you perform at the highest level all the time. It's his job to create an environment around you.
Absolutely.
And you got to be really, you got to be communicative about that and what you need. And that's how I stay sane. But to be honest, touring kind of keeps me more sane than being stuck at home at the moment.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, now that you are stuck at home, have you developed any kind of new routines, any new habits to help you deal with it?
I wish I had more discipline. I wish I had more discipline to get up and go exercise for an hour and go for a run for half an hour. I think I am very driven by my emotions and how I feel. And sometimes I wake up and I just feel bad, and sometimes I feel great. And I just mostly put that energy in music, and it's just what I've always done for the last 10 years. I wake up, I feel a certain way, and I put that into creative energy to do music. But this is definitely the time for me to explore what's out there, what's besides music and all of that, what's out there, what's important to me, because it definitely makes me think this time, like, what do I want after music or besides music? There must be more.
Yeah.
But I'm still figuring it out, man.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. These are all great things to think about. Do you have any, outside of music, do you have any hobbies, anything you do for fun that isn't really related to work?
That's the thing. That's the thing. When someone asks me this, I'm like, I wish I could say, oh, I play basketball and I played, but I don't. I really put most of my time in music. I do love going for a walk.
Sure.
But then when I walk, I think about music. But hey, maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe it's just the way I am. Maybe it's just what I want to do. Think about music all the time.
Oh, I mean, if it makes you happy, man, I think the only time you should question it is if it stops making you happy, you know?
Exactly, yeah. Sometimes people say, hey, maybe you should take a break. And then I take a break. And after 3 days, I'm like, I really want to make music.
Yeah, why'd I take a break?
Sometimes it makes me more stressed.
Sure.
Then I think I do need to learn to let go and stop being like, oh, I need to do the next thing and do the next thing.
Maybe it's just more about being in the moment, man, and appreciating the little things. It's when you said at the very beginning of this, when you were talking about what stay vibrant meant to you, that's actually what I took away from it, is that, you know, however you feel in a moment, whether it's good or bad, up or down, just to say, just to be in the moment and to feel it and to have that experience, that being there, that presence. And as artists, I think that's something we almost never do.
That's beautiful. I think that's definitely something we can end on that. That's what I have to do. I have to learn how to be in the moment a little bit more.
Hey man, you're not alone on that one. I think we could all take a little bit from that. Well, yeah, this has been awesome, man. I'll wrap it up just by asking the same question I ask at the end of each one of these episodes. It's just a simple thing, first thing that pops into your head kind of question. Just looking for a time in your life, a memory, a moment, could be from any time, when in a single moment, music really meant something to you, really had a deep impact on you. And you can kind of interpret that any way you want to. There's no wrong answer.
I'm going to answer it in a more general way. I think the question is kind of the answer for me. I love it when a song takes me back to a certain place and certain time.
Yeah.
This happens mostly when I discover a song. I discover a song and maybe you just met a girl or something, and that song will always be linked to that girl, or a song will always be linked to a specific holiday with family, or a song will always be linked to a special moment in your life where you had a revelation about something or you were missing someone. And I think that the fact that a song is able to bring you back to a specific time or a state or a feeling, I think that's the most beautiful thing. And I think that's my favorite part about making music as well, is being able to maybe make a song that could mean that to someone, you know, take someone back to a specific time of their lives. But there's countless of times where I've heard a song and I'm like, I'll give you an example.
Sure.
Do you know the band Explosions in the Sky?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of their songs is called The Only Moment We Were Alone. And I just remember hearing that for the first time. I just broken up with a girlfriend and the song just made me feel inexplainable feelings. And I love it when music makes you feel feelings that you didn't know existed, you know? And it's really possible for me. I can't put it into words, but maybe we can all relate when a song makes you feel something that's so big that you cannot put it into words.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's almost like it teaches you something about yourself, right? Or brings you to a realization without words, right? Yes.
Because sometimes words don't even capture the essence sometimes, you know, and sometimes music does.
Yeah. I completely agree. I mean, that's like every time I do this podcast, I have this feeling because that's exactly what we're doing.
Great.
Yeah, man. Well, that's a beautiful answer. I love that. Thanks for doing this, man. I had a really good time. I hope you had fun.
Yeah, thanks for the awesome questions, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And hopefully we'll cross paths somewhere out there once we're allowed back out there. Perfect, man. All right. Thanks a lot, dude. Awesome. Talk to you later, man. Peace.
Bye.
right, that's the show. Shout out to San Holo. Great to have you on, man. For everybody out there listening, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Don't forget, you got to hit the link in the description. Go follow San Holo. Go grab the Stay Vibrant series of tunes that he was putting out every single week during quarantine. Stay tuned for a lot of new music from him and his label, Bitbird. Fantastic label. You can keep up with me at Willy Joy, at Back to Back Pod on all social media. backtobackpod@gmail.com is the email address. And most importantly, come join the Back to Back Discord. Come chat with me. I'm in there every single day, talking to everybody. We're having a great time. We're making new friends. It is an awesome community, and we want you there. That's it for this week. Another episode in the can. I've been recording some really fun ones. I've got some really good ones lined up. This quarantine has not been all bad for Back to Back because, some people who are maybe getting a little bored, maybe looking for something to do, they're hitting up old Willy over here. So, stay tuned. We got some good ones coming. That's it for this week. I hope you're doing well. Do something fun. Do something you enjoy. Change up the routine if it's getting a little too monotonous. And until next week, take care of yourself. Take care of the people around you. I will talk to you next Tuesday. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.